Welcome to 5-Minute Book Reviews. Today we're going to be taking a look at The Last Battle by C.S. Lewis. The story starts with an ape named Shift that cons a donkey named Puzzle into wearing a costume of a lion. Then the two go into Narnia, and Shift claims that he speaks for Aslan the lion, and he has the donkey pose as Aslan in the costume. Shift has the Narnians cut down trees, and they sell the lumber to the Calamarins. The Calamarins come to Narnia with the intent of attacking Narnia and taking over. Killing the trees off actually is killing Dryads, which are magical creatures that live in the trees, and a unicorn named Jewel, who is also friends with King Tirian, the latest king of Narnia, senses this, and he tells King Tirian. Tirian and Jewel go to investigate, and they find that Calamarins are torturing Narnias, and in a fit of rage, they attack and kill them. After that, Tirian is captured by the Calamarins, who take him and put him on trial. He refuses to bend a knee to this fake Aslan, and so what they end up doing is chaining him to a tree with the intent of killing him later on. While he's in captivity, he calls out to Aslan, and Aslan sends Jill Pole and Eustace Scrub to Narnia. Tirian is rescued by some faithful dwarves, and they end up escaping the Calamarins, but Tash, the evil god of the Calamarins, shows up and he begins ravaging the country. Tirian and his allies fight against Tash and his allies, and Tirian is losing badly. He ends up retreating into a barn, but finds himself in the middle of a field. Tirian is joined by the Friends of Narnia, who are many of the characters that have been dead for years, and they oppose Tash. Tash then grabs Rizdan, who is the commander of the Calamarins, and he leaves and they disappear. Tirian finds that he's in Aslan's country, and Aslan then enacts judgment on many of the characters in the story. He ends up destroying the old Narnia, and those who have been faithful to Aslan get to live in Aslan's country forever. So there's obviously a large connection between the last battle and the book of Revelation in the Bible. You see a lot of the characters having their analog in the book of Revelation. You have a false prophet, you have Antichrist type characters, there's war, and there's a lot of other similar themes that go on in the book of Revelation as well as the last battle. One of the major themes in this book is the idea of deception versus truth. With the deception, you get the false prophet character who is represented by the ape Shift, and you see the false Aslan, who is kind of a false god in a way, and he deceives many people to follow this false god and speaking on his behalf, and that deception ends up throwing the whole world into chaos. And then you have the other side of that, where you have a number of people who don't fall for this deception, who remain true to the actual truth of the what we might call true religion of Narnia, which is the following of Aslan. So faithfulness relates to the idea of truth as well, which is really exhibited in this story. We see this played out in the characters who are faithful to Tirian, the king of Narnia, particularly with Jewel the unicorn, as well as the dwarves who rescue Tirian when he's captured. And ultimately, this group of characters is faithful to Aslan and are allowed to continue on into Aslan's country as a result of that. Aslan, however, is unable to help those who don't have faith. You see this exhibited in one of the characters that is from the Chronicles of Narnia's earlier books, Susan, who quit believing in Narnia and is not able to continue into Aslan's country as a result of that. So let's go ahead and score this book. I give this book a 3-4 character development, mostly because I don't think we see a lot of character development. We do have some strong characters that have some really unique traits and some strong characteristics about them, but we don't get to see them grow much. The one character that we do see some growth in is Puzzle the donkey, where he learns he's been duped by the ape and ends up shedding that and becoming loyal to Tirian and Aslan. And Tirian does grow some as well, where he has a fit of rage and he's kind of remorseful for that, and he ultimately is forgiven for it and is able to stay loyal to the cause of Aslan. But most of the other main characters in the story are pretty much the same as when the story started as when the story finishes. So for thematic development, I give this one a 4 because I think it's got some great thematic content around faithfulness and truth and deception and what we've already talked about. The reason I don't give this a 5 is because I think it's a little on the nose. We don't get to see the thematic development happen through the lens of the characters. Rather, the characters are more or less proxies for the themes themselves. So it makes it a little bit more blatant and a little more obvious than what it would happen if you were able to show the character arcs developing with the theme itself. So as far as plot development goes, I give this a 5, as well as conflict, because these two are tightly woven together in this story. The plot, it has a lot of twists and turns in it that are really driven by the conflict between the good and evil forces in this, and it really makes this book a page turner in a lot of ways, which is why I give it a 5 for readability. It's a great story for that purpose. It also gets a 4 for setting because, again, it says Narnia. It's a beautifully done world. And I think the way that C.S. Lewis writes Narnia is really beautifully done in this story as well as many of the other ones. But I think by the time we get to this one, it's a little tired. So I give it a point off for that. As far as entertainment goes, I don't really think that this is really an entertainment story, but even though it's really thematically rich and it's got a good plot and a lot of conflict, but it feels a little bit stifled in its creativity, and it also feels a little bit corny in the way that it's presented through the lens of the characters. I think if we would have had some stronger characters, it would have been a little bit more relatable and would also make for a better entertainment value from this story as well. So all in all, it's a great story, but still I think it's lacking in character development in a few other places. So this one I give a 29 out of a possible 35, which is not a bad score at all. It's pretty much in the mainstream as most of the books in this series. It's not my favorite one, but it's certainly a fun read, and I think it would be enjoyable for readers of all ages.